Hello, it's Anna Hill here with the Farming Today podcast. Extraordinary rainfall is still making the headlines and making some farmers' lives a misery.
The ground is very soft and I'm just coming to a bit here that's kind of lying underwater. As you can hear, the ground's just like quicksand.
And later, the AI technology turning a barn into a bovine Big Brother house.
You can see whether one of the cows is very social one day, and then a few days later they've withdrawn a bit from the social network, and that might be indicative that they're coming down with some infection.
We'll have more on that a little later. First today, beef cows grazing with their calves are a traditional part of the landscape, particularly in upland areas of the UK. But a new report says Welsh beef suckler herd numbers have decreased by nearly 40% over the last 2 decades. The National Farmers Union in Wales, NFU Cymru, produced the report, and it says this approach to beef farming is in need of urgent support. According to NFU Cymru, the 6,000 such herds in Wales contribute 18.6% of Welsh agricultural output. Paul Williams is Deputy President of NFU Cymru.
There's multiple factors that's affecting the numbers. We have, unfortunately, the perpetual risk of TB here in Wales, which is obviously making people very nervous. We've also had the impending water framework regulations, the NVZ regulations here in Wales, which unfortunately adds even more cost burden. It just doesn't make any sense to invest upwards of £100,000 or more on a small herd. So there's a lot of different factors, and obviously also the suckler cow production costs tend to be higher than any other business costs on beef production as well. So that, you know, there's a myriad of factors that's all accumulated into this figure that we have, and one of the reasons why we needed to make sure that there was a working document that we can take forward to the new government in Wales.
40% sounds like a big decline, doesn't it? But it is over 20 years. Is there anything in the market that has made that decline happen as well?
Well, you'd have thought, given that the price of beef at the moment is very good, everybody who's in the beef industry would say, well, they are where they need to be. The problem is with suckler bred beef, it's a very slow process. You know, we basically, if you're lucky, you have 1 calf per cow per year. There's a lot of work to be done, a lot of husbandry, and then, you know, at best you're looking at a 2-year wait before you get a return on that time invested.
The thing is, though, if the market isn't working, then why should it be supported by the taxpayer or by the government?
The market is working for beef in general, but there has to be a recognition that suckler beef has more than just beef production behind it. It's got heritage, it's got history, it has a huge important role to play in our uplands, in nature conservation. You know, even the NGOs now are beginning to recognise how important proper grazing management of our uplands is, and you will only get that with a mixture of sheep and also cattle.
It's the added value you're talking about, isn't it?
It's the families behind those suckler cows. You know, for every suckler cow herd that we lose in the uplands, there's family, there's history, there's generations behind those. You know, we know that the Welsh black cattle, for instance, have been grazing the uplands of Wales for over 1,000 years. That's documented. So we have a fantastic story to sell. The last thing we want is to lose critical mass in our already fragile abattoir network here in Wales. If we lose one of our 3 major abattoirs, that would be a disaster for us. Welsh food and drink is on the up here in Wales. It's one of the best success stories we have, and we are proud to underpin that. Now, we can't underpin that if we don't have those cows in our uplands.
Paul Williams from NFU Cymru. Artificial intelligence, AI, is starting to influence many aspects of everyday life, and farming is no exception. This week we're looking at how the technology might be harnessed to help solve some tricky problems. Today, dairy cows' health and welfare. Bristol Vet School's farm is using AI and CCTV cameras to spot changes in behaviour among its dairy cows to find out whether it can pick up potential issues sooner than human herd managers. The project is publicly funded by UK Research and Innovation. Marie Lennon found out more from Windhurst Farms manager Ben Hunt.
On a day-to-day level, we've got 200 cows of milk yielding sort of 42 litres a cow a day, so reasonably productive. Pedigree Holstein, just a lovely herd.
And we can just about hear the whirring in the background. You're on your second milking of the day, so 3 milkings a day. Professor Andrew Dowsey, tell me a bit about the work that happens here that you're involved with.
I'm a computer scientist, but what we've been doing here, this platform now has 60 CCTV cameras that are...
Oh, you wouldn't even notice,
You wouldn't
would
even
you?
notice it until you start looking.
OK, there's one.
They're placed to cover the whole barn area, to monitor essentially the life course of each individual animal, and particularly to characterise their behaviours and social behaviours. From an artificial intelligence perspective, the last few years we've developed methods to identify each individual based on their coat pattern, but that allows us automatically to track each individual across our camera network. And from that, we've developed new techniques to recognise different behaviours that they're doing when they're interacting with each other, whether they're doing it in an affiliative, they're grooming each other, or whether it's a more agonistic interaction. The aim of the platform is to link that to various outcomes, productivity, welfare in particular, even potentially emissions going forward. You can see whether one of the cows is very social one day, and then a few days later they've withdrawn a bit from the social network, and that might be indicative that they're coming down with some infection.
Ben, what do you think? Is it helpful from a kind of bottom line point of view?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, there are endless examples from forever of those really skilled herdsmen that can spot a sick cow a mile off. It's absolutely key to be able to pick up disease or infections really quickly, in terms of effective treatment and trying to, yes, keep the cow productive but maximise her welfare and potentially use less antibiotics. And if we can see that from monitoring behaviour, I say simply because obviously it's not. It takes a great deal of skill and technology and development, but huge implications that could have from a cost saving.
How do you see you working with the technology as a farmer?
I think it will change our role and our input and our behaviours as a team, but I don't think it will be vastly different to where we are. I think it would just improve.
These cows, it's like they're in the Big Brother house. There is CCTV everywhere watching their every move. Now we can go and see what happens with that data. Can we go and have a look at that?
Yes, absolutely.
Into the office, away from the cows. What are we looking at on this screen here?
We are looking at essentially a Big Brother view of our cow shed. What we're working on now is we have behavioural recognition AIs. We can see if there are behavioural changes that predate actual clinical signs. Most technologies on the market are looking for clinical signs, but what we're looking for here are there subtle behavioural changes that predate those clinical signs, so the farmer can potentially act sooner.
In reality, how likely is it that a dairy farmer just operating on a commercial basis could utilise this technology?
We are particularly hoping that this will transform into a product in a few years' time that could be used by dairy farmers. We've been running this data collection for a little under a year now, but obviously in a few years' time we'll have a full life cycle for a cow, and that opens up lots of interesting research about in welfare research, in the biological research, but also into improved artificial intelligence too.
Professor Andrew Dowsey from the University of Bristol with Marie Lennon. Yesterday we reported on the rain, But it hasn't stopped, so here we are again. The east of Scotland is usually relatively dry, but so far this year it's experienced record-breaking rainfall. Aberdeen last saw sunshine on the 19th of January. Here's Jack Stevenson on his farm near Banff.
I'm presently walking through a field of winter wheat here. The ground is very soft, and I'm just coming to a bit here that's kind of lying underwater. As you can hear, the ground's just like quicksand. Pretty soon we'll probably struggle to survive. Fingers crossed it does dry up, because we are on a drier farm, but there's certainly a lot of fields lying underwater in Aberdeenshire.
Well, Jack, who's chair of National Farmers Union Scotland's Combinable Crops Committee, joined us from his warm, dry kitchen to tell us about those conditions on Aberdeenshire farms.
The rivers are at bursting point at the moment, and we've a lot of farmland next to rivers are flooded, and the ground can't cope with any more. It's just going to end up spilling over into lower lying parts of the country. I've had about 250 mil of rain so far in parts of Aberdeenshire, and that's just since the beginning of the year. We would normally only get about 750 to 800, so you can imagine how wet things are.
So you've had about a quarter of your rainfall just in this short period this year that you would normally have had for the whole year?
Correct, yes. So it's wet, miserable, damp, dark and horrible.
How does that affect crops which are already in the field?
If they're underwater, like winter wheat or winter oilseed rape, 3 or 4 days underwater, more than that, and they will just rot out. And probably if it's a whole field, yes, that could mean a huge financial loss to the farmer. Whether he re-sows that field in the springtime, a lot of it will be parts of fields that'll have to be re-sown, or it just has a knock-on effect for the rest of the field. But it's crops came through the winter, they're looking very well, and we had quite a good November, December. But since the turn of the year with the snow in January and now this continual rain, it's beginning to certainly take its toll on the winter crops.
The crops that haven't rotted, could they get back on track? And the ones that you sow in the patches that need re-sowing, will they catch up?
Yeah, I mean, as long as the crop's not underwater, the winter crops, as the wheat and the winter barley, they were established very well, and they were actually coming through the winter quite well. So they will get back on track. Yes, if we're having this conversation in the beginning of March, that's when we need to get on with early fertilisers, some herbicides and fungicides. That will have a huge effect on quality of the grain if we can't. But surely we're always optimistic. We'll look on the brighter side that it will dry up. But the areas of crop that a farmer maybe has to patch in, they're never going to be the same. It'll be too late for a winter wheat crop to be sown up here. Probably have to patch it in with maybe a cover crop or some spring barley, but they'll never be the same yield as the ones that's been sown in the winter time.
What are you doing, Jack? Are you sitting on the sofa watching the Winter Olympics? or are you actually getting out there and doing things?
Well, Anna, no, we've a mixed farm, so cattle need to be fed twice a day, and there's lots of workshop jobs at this time of year that we can get on with, machinery maintenance, and there's office work as well, crop planning, and doing the dreaded VAT. So there's most farmers, I would like to say, are still quite busy, especially if they've got livestock.
Jack Stevenson, NFU Scotland's chair of Combinable Crops, speaking to us from a very rainy Aberdeenshire. That's all from us. I'm Anna Hill. The producer was Sarah Swadling. Farming Today is a BBC Audio Bristol production.